Why did Pakistan, which was once the nurturing force for the Taliban, is now launching the air raids or the airstrikes against the territories which is being ruled by Taliban? Why there have been the conflict that are multiple times again and again emerging between Afghanistan and Pakistan regarding the line which was drawn during the British time period, which is the Durand Line? What kind of opportunities that India is having in this particular ongoing conflict between Afghanistan and Pakistan? And is there any specific issues that can also occur, or it can become a double-edged sword for India? What are the developmental partnership that India has provided to Afghanistan in the nature of roughly $3 billion investments in different projects? And what has happened to these particular developments during the new Talibani regime? What is Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, and what is the reason why they have emerged and why they are waging a war or the conflict against Pakistan? Hello everyone, I am Vishal Sir, and today we are going to discuss about a very interesting topic and the ongoing development regarding the conflict between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Now you must be wondering that why we are discussing an issue which is not including India per se, because it is including the countries like Afghanistan and Pakistan. But when you see the UPSC CSE syllabus of the international relations, in that particular case, you will realize that the interest of India lies in all those particular regions that can also be asked from the examination perspective. So that's why in order to understand these particular development and what kind of opportunity lies for India and what might be the challenges that will be there pertaining to India, that we should be aware of. And hence this topic becomes very relevant and important from the examination perspective. Now what had happened recently, that there has been the airstrike from the side of Pakistan in the areas of Afghanistan. Now when these particular airstrikes were there, these airstrikes were in the region of Kabul and the Paktia provinces. Now when these airstrikes were targeted towards certain faction which was basically named as the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan TTP Pakistan. Right? And when these particular attacks were there, now Afghanistan, which is being right now ruled under the Talibani regime, now that particular Taliban had the responsibility that whether they are going to bear the burden of this particular attack or are they going to retaliate in order to assert their national sovereignty. So in that particular case, now Taliban had retaliated regarding those particular airstrikes that were done by Pakistan, and Taliban had attacked multiple locations, specifically including the region, including the Torkham and the Chaman crossings. Now this is not the exclusive to region. Across the regions of this particular line, which is also known as the Durand Line, along this particular line there have been multiple conflict that emerged between the forces of Taliban and the forces of Pakistan. Now when this conflict is burning, and also South Asia in general is in the hotbed of the conflict for multiple reasons. Previously because of the Gen Z protest, previously before that it was in Myanmar, and now it is between the Afghanistan and Pakistan. That's why this region entirely is important, and that's why we have to understand this specific conflict in detail. Now you will also agree that no conflict will erupt just suddenly. There are certain aspects that are underlying already and that need certain kind of spark. So every conflict have certain background and the historical timeline that we have to understand. And if you are able to understand that, the task will be comparatively easy even for writing the answer regarding that specific topic, even if you want to analyze that topic. So when we are talking about this, one such term that will come to your mind again and again, which is first Taliban, another is the Durand Line. What is this particular Durand Line? Why the conflict has initiated after the formation or after the creation of this particular Durand Line, that we have to understand. Simultaneously, we also need to understand that Pakistan, which once was the country which supported the formation of Taliban, why it is now waging a war against Taliban. So all these things we should be having a clear-cut consideration about. So let's start the discussion with the historical timeline of the conflict. Now when we see in the history, it was not Pakistan until 1947, right? It was India which was being under the British colonial rule before 1947. So when India was under the British colonial rule before 1947, and Afghanistan, with which the British India waged multiple war, in that particular cases, in order to create Afghanistan as a buffer state, there was a demarcation of the line specifically in the time period of 1893, and this particular line became the Durand Line. So the agreement that was there between Sir Mortimer Durand and the Amir of Afghanistan of that point of time, it was Amir Abdur Rahman Khan. He was the Amir, or we can say the governing head of Afghanistan. And they agreed upon a line which we have already seen in this particular diagram, which is the Durand Line. Now, if you see this particular Durand Line, this is the line of more than 2600 kilometers. Now, how this line was demarcated? This line was demarcated not by going to the ground and seeing the actual locations, but without taking into consideration the ethnicity which is living in these particular regions. So, there were two prominent ethnicities that were residing in the region from where this line passes. Here, it is being habitated by the Baluch tribe, and here it was the Pashtun tribe which was habitated. And in that particular context, when this line passed, this line divided these particular two tribes, specifically the Baluch and the Pashtuns, and the conflict emerged from here, because these people wanted their own governing area, but now because of the artificial demarcation of this particular line, now that particular thing is separating them. And Afghanistan, for that particular context, since 1947 have not accepted this particular line as the line of demarcation. So previously, when this line was demarcated, it was the demarcation between India, which was being ruled by British, and Afghanistan, right? And after that, when Pakistan was formed after 1947, the territory of bordering region with Afghanistan, that basically belonged to the region of Pakistan, and hence Pakistan inherited that particular border. Now in that case, Pakistan and Afghanistan should have to agree on that particular borderline, but Pakistan agreed, but Afghanistan denied that we do not believe in this particular construct or the concept of the Durand Line. So we are not going to recognize this particular line. Now, during this time, it was the time period of the Cold War. So from roughly 1947 to the time period of 1991 was the time period of the Cold War. In this Cold War, mainly the Soviet, which governed the territory of Afghanistan, specifically they entered roughly from 1979, and roughly 10 years there was a struggle that was going on in the Afghanistan region, and this was one such reason why the Soviet power declined. Now, once Soviet got disintegrated in 1991, now there was a power vacuum that was created in the region of Afghanistan. There were many tribals who were ruling in that particular region, and hence there was certain elements in the Pakistani madrasa, that is specifically near the Pashtun dominated region, there was emergence of Taliban, and this was originated roughly from 1994. So this was developed as a ideology wala aspect, and then later on became the ruler of Kabul. They have seized the Kabul in 1996. Now, who were the supporting power in this particular case? They were being supported by the countries like Pakistan. They were being supported by the countries like Saudi. Also, the United States provided the support to Taliban in order to gain the access to that particular region, because US also wanted to get the resources from that region. Now, from 1996 roughly till 2001, Taliban was the de facto ruler of that particular region. Now that particular time period, it was marked by that the Taliban 1.0 was ruling this territory. There were many such terrorist activities were also initiated from that region. After that, what happened? That there was an incident of the 9/11 terror attack, and In that context, there was overthrow of Taliban from 2001 onwards, and 2001 say there was invasion of United States in Afghanistan, and since then the Taliban rule was toppled with the help of the Northern Alliance and the United States forces, and since then the NATO and the United States forces stationed in that particular region. Now, when one such ideology or the faction that was previously supported by countries like Pakistan, Saudi and United States, now suddenly after 2001 when you started waging the war against those particular people, they got this illusion that, see, initially it was the forces, let's say from the United States it was CIA, from the Pakistan it was ISI, which was basically providing the support to the Talibani faction, but now these particular support had taken aback, and now these forces are attacking on the Talibani actions, right? And in that particular case, many such disgruntled organizations that led to evade from that particular region, or that came out of that particular region and now hiding somewhere in Pakistan, specifically in the region dominated by Pashtun tribe near that Durand Line, they in 2007 form the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. So it's not necessarily that exactly same people who were there in Taliban in Afghanistan, they were there, but to some extent the ideologically affectionated people, those who were believer of that particular extremist ideology, they formed the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan in the Pakistani region, and their purpose was to create the Shariat in that particular region of Pakistan and to overthrow the government of Pakistan, to establish the Sharia law in Pakistan. Apart from that, even in order to control that region and also to put their allegiance towards the Talibani factions. Now, in retaliation, what TTP had done, TTP waged multiple wars or multiple attacks on Pakistan. But at this point, at this juncture, there was support from the side of the United States. United States forces were stationed very near and having the base in the Pakistan also and very near in the Afghanistan region. That's why those particular attacks intensity was not that high. But what has changed now? What kind of things have changed now that after 2021, there has been the Talibani takeover or the return to power again. Now, once Taliban again returned to power in 2021, the real struggle starts now. Because initially Pakistan thought that this particular Taliban is again going to be their puppet. They can, through ISI or US, through CIA, can be able to control this particular Talibani faction. But this time the Taliban emerged as the nationalist faction. They were talking about the Afghan-owned and Afghan-led government. And unlike the previous Taliban, which was being opposed by the Northern Alliance, this time there has not been the major opposition to the Taliban within that particular country. And that's why from 2021, once the Taliban had taken over the country again, the Afghanistan again, the TTP attacks on Pakistan also suddenly increased, because now it was alleged that the TTP got certain hideouts in Taliban because of the similar ideology, because of certain kind of military and the other troops related support. So this is the major issue, that the snake that they were thinking that yes, this is going to help us, the way they were nurturing the Taliban, the way they were putting the extremist ideology in that particular region. Now that particular thing is biting them, and in the form of TTP, when they have formulated this particular or led to the formation of this organization, which is disgruntled from them because they were now doing the attacks on Taliban itself, and hence TTP, when it was formed, its main objective was to take the revenge from the Pakistani side. So since 1893, formation of the Durand Line, to 2021, the Taliban returned to power again, and now on the 9th October 2025, when the Pakistani forces attacked in the Afghanistan, and Afghanistani forces or the Talibani forces gave the befitting reply to the Pakistani forces, this is escalating one of the major conflict again that has been erupting in the South Asian region. Now, having discussed about this entire historical timeline of the conflict, now let's talk about how India's dynamics are changing. See, We have to accept that yes, right now the de facto ruler in Afghanistan is Taliban. And whether we want to keep the relation or whether we want to keep ourselves aloof, it's up to us. But yes, the reality is that yes, they are the ruling faction. But when we talk about the historical timeline, how India played in history and what are the relations right now that we are having, and historically how those particular relations were shaped towards the Taliban. So when we broadly see from the perspective of Afghanistan, we had the historical ties with Afghanistan, whether you talk about, let's say, the Kushana ruler, or even before that during the Mauryan Empire, we had the cultural connect, we had the connectivity with them. And later on, even during the time period of the British rule, the people of India and Afghanistan were having the close relations. But later on, because of the Britishers' policy, there was the creation of the line, or there was militarization of that particular region. Now, after 1947, when there was a division between India and Pakistan, and when after the 1979, when the Soviet invaded the territory of Afghanistan, India supported that particular government. Now, 1996 May, when the Taliban took over the region of Afghanistan for the first time, since it was a terror, it was being linked to the terror outfit. That's why India did not give any recognition to Taliban, and that's why it was considered as the India's policy of isolationism. So that's why we can say now we are moving from the isolationism to the pragmatism or the pragmatic engagement. How it was isolationism? So in 1996, we were not recognizing Taliban. We were not giving any formal recognition to Taliban. We were not having any kind of diplomatic back channel diplomacy, right? And that particular thing costed us when there was in 1999, there was a plane hijack in the name of IC-814 plane that was hijacked and taken to Kandahar, and at that point of time, we were not able to gain any support from the side of the Talibani forces there, and then we have to repay those particular terrorists in the form of certain major terrorists, and we had to release those. Now that had costed us, like our isolationism costed us a lot. After that, what happened in 2001 when the United States invaded Afghanistan region, there was toppling of the Taliban. Now there was establishment of the democratic rule in Afghanistan. Now what had changed after that? Now there is a democratically governing territory or Afghanistan, and there was a democratically elected government in that particular region, and hence India also started doing the or having the diplomatic relation with that particular government. We established our embassy again in that particular region. What we have done further, we have tried to support in the development of Afghanistan. So whether it is in the form of education by forming universities, whether supporting through the infrastructure like the parliament building, whether through the health related support, whether through the humanitarian development, right? Apart from that, there are multiple infrastructure projects. For example, Salma Dam was there. Apart from that, there was the highways like Zaranj-Dilaram highway, right? So these were the development, these are the sum of the development, and if you totally take the cost of these projects, roughly this is more than $3 billion that India invested in the region of Afghanistan. This includes the humanitarian aid, this includes the developmental support. Even India went with the strategic partnership with the democratically elected government of Afghanistan. Now the situation changed quickly after 2021. The world was not anticipating that the Taliban will again come to power, but yes, it happened. When the United States forces retreated, Taliban again came to power, and then 2021 onwards, it was a major challenge for India in order to have that whether we are going to have relations with Taliban, which is not considering the women right, which is not considering the child rights and all these things, right? And apart from that, whether we are going to give the formal recognition. So then India's policy was shaped by the policy of pragmatism. What had happened basically? So we have started the pragmatic engagement. We have not stopped the humanitarian support. Since 2021 onwards, we were providing the humanitarian support because at the stake were the $3 billion and this particular support, and even the Afghan people have or basically they consider Indians as the supporter. Even if you go today, they are basically having very much goodwill for the people of India. So people to people level, but there was no such issue. It was the changing of the governance structure mein, and that's why we have to deal with that particular change structure. And hence, India started with the humanitarian outreach. We were providing through the missions the humanitarian support in the form of the food program, health and all, right? After that, what we realized that there is a need for the better diplomatic back channel diplomacy, and hence from 2022 there was the technical mission that was initiated. So whatever embassy that was there and that was shut down after 2021, now that embassy was converted into the technical mission, where we were ensuring that whatever project India had launched, are there any major issues that are going on with these particular project? That's why in order to observe those things, there was the technical mission. So it was, we can say to some extent like embassy, but not the full-fledged embassy that was getting operated from the Kabul region since 2022. Now what had happened recently, that the Afghani or the Talibani foreign minister came to India for multi-day visit, and then there was the discussion between the Indian counterpart, who is Dr. S. Jaishankar, and the Talibani foreign minister, and then the discussion was regarding putting up from the technical mission to upgrading it to a full-fledged embassy, and hence now there have been the upgrade that has been done, and now the technical mission is converted into the full embassy. Does it mean that India have given the formal recognition to the Talibani rule? The answer is no, because both the things are separate. Like establishing any embassy does not necessarily give that we have given the formal recognition to the rule. But yes, we have opened a channel for communication. We are taking into consideration the rights of the people who are residing there, who are Indians and residing there, Indians stakes that are there in that particular country. So do not get confused that India have given the formal recognition to the Talibani rule. In future there may be, but yes, still right now, as of now, today's date, we have not given the formal recognition, but yes, we have established the full embassy in the Kabul now. So this has been the major development that has been there. Now, talking about this, when these two countries, for example, previously the Pakistan who was nurturing the Taliban, and now there have been a conflict going on between the Taliban and Pakistan, does it provide any opportunity for India? So this is the question to be asked, that what India is going to get from this particular conflict. So the opportunities in totality from the region of Afghanistan are many. First, we can talk about the diplomatic recalibration. See, previously our policy was isolationist. 1996 mein we have not given the recognition to Talibani government, or we have not any channel of diplomacy with them. But now we are talking to them, we are having the diplomatic relations, we are now engaging through the embassy, we have given them right to establish their embassy in the region of New Delhi. So that means we are going for the diplomatic channels, we are opening all the diplomatic channels so that we can discuss about this. So there has been a diplomatic recalibration, engagement without endorsement. We do not necessarily endorse whatever Taliban is saying, whether it is about the human rights, whether it is about women rights, or whether it is about, let's say, the Sharia rule. But yes, we are accepting that they are the de facto ruler right now, and we have to deal with this particular government because there is no such opposition going on, right? The next is regarding the economic leverage and the connectivity. So the $3 billion investment or the development related support that India has provided in multiple form, health, education, developmental infrastructure, support to connectivity, and even accessing certain trade relation with Afghanistan that were there. So this is the economic leverage that India can also gain from that particular country, and also that country can gain from India. There is also cricket diplomacy that is there, right? So India has provided their right to have certain stadiums. So we have provided access to the Indian stadiums, Indian infrastructure in order to get them trained, so that there will be a comparatively better goodwill that will be available with the Afghani people. Next is the counterbalancing the regional blocks, because see, this particular Talibani faction is a nationalist faction. Forget about like whatever rule they are going to do, whatever kind of respect to, let's say, not putting for the human rights, but they are governing their country in their own way, and there is no such major opposition. And when they are ruling their country, they do not want over reliance on any specific country, let's say on Pakistan. That's why they severed to some extent relation with Pakistan. They have joined the BRI project, which is the Belt and Road Initiative of China, but still they do not want to get over reliant on China because they are aware of the Chinese policy. Even when the Russia is having good relations with Taliban, they do not want to over rely on Russia. That's why they are seeking for the alternative, which is the neighboring country and which can provide the equivalent amount of support to that particular country. That's why the India's outreach to Afghanistan, specifically in this particular Taliban rule, is very, very important, because Taliban also sees India as an important partner in that region. And hence, when the foreign minister of Afghanistan, or the Talibani foreign minister, when he provided the recognition that India is a major developmental partner and we are inviting India to do the mining in Afghanistan, that was a very important step ahead, that India can utilize that particular territory in order to do the mining and all those particular mineral will be beneficial for India, including multiple critical minerals, right? So that's why having good relation with the Afghan region, or basically presently dominated by the Talibani factions, is important from the strategic perspective, economic perspective, political perspective, and also maintaining the regional stability. Because if the Afghanistan is going to get burned, the particular flames are going to also reach to India, right? So that's why these are the opportunities that India is having. But these opportunities are like the double-edged sword. If these calculations become miscalculation, and those things will be realized obviously in the future time, but yes, there are also certain challenges that are associated with this. Firstly, see, there are obviously the security risk that are associated with this. Why? Because there are many factions which are the terrorist factions still operating from certain regions of Afghanistan. There is the Islamic State of the Khorasan province, which is operating from the border region near the Durand Line between the Pakistan and Afghanistan, and from that region they are operating and they are getting support from the ISI faction, and basically Pakistan is nurturing them in order to provide support against the Talibani government. Similarly, there is Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed, which are the major terrorist outfits which are functioning against India or propagating the anti-India activity. Now, if Taliban rule turn into the similar Talibani rule which was in the first regime, now that is going to pose the security risk for India. And if these particular forces are going to get the hideout in the Afghani region, or let's say in the Pakistani region, and also simultaneously operating from Afghanistan and Pakistan, this is going to be the major challenge for India, because we can't nurture these particular terrorists in our proximity. Next is the recognition dilemma. As I've talked about, we have established the diplomatic relations, but basically diplomatic relation as in like we have not formally recognized the Taliban, but we have established the embassy, full-fledged embassy, right? So there is recognition if we are going to provide formally कि भाई we are accepting this particular rule of Taliban as the formal rule. In that case, what about the human and the women rights? Because still their policy regarding the human rights is not clear. Women rights, they are not providing much rights to women, right? And even in the recent press conference, you might have seen that in the first press conference, there was no female journalist that was invited, right? Regarding the education, regarding health, all these issues are at stake. Next is regarding the global competition. Already there are many countries competing for the Afghanistan. China is there, Russia is there, Iran is there. China, through its economic diplomacy, trying to control the region economically through Belt and Road Initiative like the infrastructure support. Russia is providing the legitimacy to the Taliban rule, and Russia is also trying to gain the strategic access to that particular region. Simultaneously, Iran, because Afghanistan is having severe relation with Pakistan. Iran is also right now having to some extent severe relation with Pakistan, because Pakistan's proximity with United States. That's why they can form an axis against the Pakistan, and that's why these countries are coming together. And there are chances that if these are coming together, what about India? What about the India's interest in that particular region? Last in this is the narcotic and the terror financing. Afghanistan is a major, or we can say one of the largest producer of the opium. And when opium is getting produced, mainly the majority of that opium is being utilized by the terrorist outfit in order to support the terror activities for gaining the strategic access to the weapons, right? And when these particular funds are being utilized for the terror network, obviously you can't get the stable regime over there. There will be conflicts, there will be gun trading, obviously those particular things are going to make this region again violent or the conflict ridden. Apart from this, there are certain values like the liberty, democracy, these particular values which we say that these are the important value, and India is also believer of these particular values. But when we are talking about giving recognition to Taliban, still we have not given. In that particular cases, don't you think so that it is going to impact our ties with the Western countries or the other countries which are believer of these particular values like the democratic values? So these are the major challenges or the dilemma that India is facing right now in order to deal with the Talibani forces or the Talibani faction in Afghanistan. Now, talking about what is the future, what lies in the future. So there are obviously certain fault line, but these particular fault line, if utilized properly, can pave the way for the sustainable India and Afghanistan relationship. So there is already a geopolitical realignment going on, because Taliban, which was once nurtured by Pakistan, is now waging the war against Pakistan. Pakistan is also getting frustrated with the Talibani faction, including specifically from the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. And in that particular case, it puts the strategic vacuum, right? So there is a strategic vacuum that is being created in that particular region, and then India is one such country which is having the might as well as the resources in order to fill that particular vacuum. If that is being utilized by any major country which is not resident of the region, then it will be an issue. So India have to utilize this opportunity and fill this particular vacuum in order to establish comparatively better relation, but also be mindful with the policies of Taliban. Next is the strategic window for India, because the mines and mineral, a lot of developmental support, even later on the trade, development, connectivity. For example, there are certain projects like through the Chabahar port of Iran, it is going to connect through to Afghanistan, and then through Afghanistan to Central Asia. There is INSTC, International North-South Transport Corridor. Apart from that, even many other projects like Tapi Pipeline. These are certain projects which is important, and this paves the way for India to put a developmental role towards Afghanistan in order to utilize this opportunity, but also be cautious about that if there may be certain issues regarding the ideological thing, then what would be the stand? So obviously it's not the easy task even for the diplomatic faction in India regarding deciding that what should be the policy ahead. But yes, we have to be mindful. We have to keep our eyes and ear open in order to see all the development, and we have to remain mindful regarding what steps we are taking, and because the future will see that what kind of yield or the dividend is going to come with these particular steps. But yes, we have to carefully navigate in this particular scenario when Afghanistan is being ruled by the Talibani faction. So what we have discussed is from the perspective of India regarding the Talibani rule, regarding all such things that is relevant from the India's perspective. I hope this particular analysis of this particular topic is clear to you, because right now there are developments going on. What will happen in this particular conflict, whether it will emerge as a full-fledged war, we'll see in future, and if there will be any major development, we'll discuss about that particular development in the upcoming video. So I hope the analysis is clear to you. Thank you very much. Have a great day.